let's kick off an extraordinary adventure here. Old Wu paused for a moment, then jokingly asked, "What crime did you commit?" Curly didn't hesitate. He replied he committed murder. Outside the police station, the new detective entered Domu. "Why do we detectives have to maintain order for the politician's campaign?" Domu heard someone call him from behind and turned to find it was Liu Shen. Domu, the detective in charge of Liu Shen's son case, had received dozens of suspects from Liu Shen over the past year. Any young person who touched the rear was a suspect. Liu Shen was convinced that was the killer. Domu was already worn out, especially since the coroner ruled Liu Shen's son had committed suicide. But Liu Shen said this time was different. His son met his ex in the morning and died at the exam center by afternoon. What a coincidence. Domu sighed and said he had done his best. Sorry. Just then, the taxi merged onto the highway. Old Wu saw a fight in the emergency lane, marveling at today's fiery youth. Curly added Old Wu was just too soft. "He should have given the delivery guy a good tongue lashing," said Curly. "Good people are the most pitiful species on earth," laughed. Curly was much colder than he seemed. When those words left his mouth, Curly's expression turned instantly serious. He leaned in and angrily asked Old Wu, "Were you calling me cold-blooded? Hey, are you used to this? Do you even dare to talk to others now? Do you even dare to speak up? Haven't you watched Taxi Driver yet?" "Robert De Niro." Old Wu broke out in a cold sweat. Curly explained with a smile that had joined the drama club in high school. He occasionally liked to recite lines. Old Wu glanced to the rearview mirror and silently shut his mouth as night fell. Liu Shen called a boss named Bai to help check if there was a doctor named Lai at the affiliated hospital of Ike University. Meanwhile, Old Wu curiously asked Curly, "What kind of car accident makes you too afraid to ride a bus?" Curly answered with, "That's just a regular car accident." The driver dozed off and crashed into a maintenance truck in a tunnel. The bus flipped over. It flung him out with force. Curly thought he was a goner for sure, without a doubt. Surprisingly, he survived. The doctor said his amygdala got messed up, the part of the brain that processes fear. So ever since then, he has never felt fear again, for which Old Wu apologized. He said he was just curious. Curly leaned in again, claiming that accident gave him a superpower, and Old Wu looked skeptical. "What superpower?" Curly spread his hands and pulled out a nail to demonstrate. Old Wu nearly lost his breath. Suddenly, a horn blared from outside as a large RV pulled up, driven by a burly man. Old Wu felt guilty and rolled down his window to apologize. Meanwhile, Aunt Lu drove near the Flower Moon Cave. Following Bai's instructions, he knocked on the door of a house. A big lady came over, telling Aunt Lu to stop knocking. Grandmother was in hospital house uninhabited for long. Aunt Lu said she was from Washington, and her boss said. My boss said. "I'm looking for Dr. Lai," Aunt Lu said. The lady thought for a moment. She saw Dr. Lai in the afternoon dragging a suitcase into a cab, seemingly for a long journey. On the highway, talkative Old Wu fell silent. In the back, Curly said she was grateful for the crash, no more fear or pain. She became a true warrior. If that RV driver had dissed her, that guy would be a goner. Killing is pretty easy. Just stab the vocal cords 10 centimeters deep, and they can't scream. Then cut the major arteries, and it's all over. Old Wu told Curly to stop making such jokes. Curly said she wasn't joking. She had really killed before, many people. "I even killed today," Aunt Lu said as she pulled out a screwdriver from the trunk, leaping over the wall like a superhero before landing in a puddle. She got up despite the pain in her back and used the screwdriver to pry open the door. Meanwhile, Old Wu turned around and asked Curly if she was serious. Curly didn't blink and stared at Old Wu for a long moment, his cold gaze devoid of any emotion. "Why, darling?" "No, are you joking?" "Of course, I was joking." "Driver, you go ahead to the restroom." The two entered the service station restroom. They bumped into the RV driver right there. The big guy recognized Old Wu at once and unleashed a torrent of curses while Old Wu just nodded submissively. Curly let out a snort from the side, and the RV driver turned around to teach this young punk a lesson, but Old Wu stopped him. Unexpectedly, the big guy slapped Old Wu's hand away and followed it up with a punch. "I must have dozed off. I'm watching you today. You better protect the princess from now on." Old Wu felt like the biggest loser, getting schooled by a younger guy, but he couldn't fight back. Win or lose, he'd end up paying or in jail. Losing meant serious injury and hospital bills either way. He couldn't afford it. Even his lighter was acting against him. The RV driver tossed a box of instant noodles into the microwave, planning to enjoy a peaceful meal. Suddenly, he heard some noise from the driver's seat. Pulling back the curtain, he found someone had smashed his car window. Clearly, someone was snooping. Cautiously, he opened the door, and in the dim light, he checked the interior, which was spotless. It looked like nobody had lived there for ages. He rummaged around and pulled out a box from under the bed. Opening the lid revealed a clinical anatomy book inside. Inside the book was a photo of Stump Payload, and to his dismay, one was his son's picture. Meanwhile, inside the RV, Curly drew a knife, intending to return his son's hand, but before Curly could even set it down, he felt a sudden urgency knocking at the door.